Good morning, North Point. Whether you're joining us online or in person at North Point, we wanted to welcome you to our service today. Well, we were supposed to be taking a road trip to Myrtle Beach to spend some time with family. And on Thursday, the day that we were supposed to leave, my mom calls and says that my dad and my brother and my niece all tested positive for COVID. So, COVID kind of thwarted our vacation plans for this weekend.
Now, so we have to be nimble.
And we got to make some sacrifices. Our family vacation, we don't get to do that. And you know what? That's okay. That's kind of the new normal, right? But sacrifices can also be good. So when we wear our masks, for example, we're making a sacrifice. A lot of us don't like to do that, but we do it because it protects other people.
And we got hand sanitizer.
We do. We got a bunch of different hand sanitizers. We got the liquid kind. You just spray it on. You wash your hands, keep them clean, so that when you touch surfaces, everything's clean, right? Well, we don't like to do that all the time. That's a sacrifice that we have to make in this day. It's not very fun. But when we talk about sacrifices, a lot of them are very good. And I can think of one that is the most amazing sacrifice. Jesus died on the cross for us so that we could not live in fear and we could be free. That we can have eternal life, that, we get to go to heaven. There are all these great things that come with the sacrifice that Jesus Christ made for us. And speaking of sacrifices, North Point participates every year in this little thing called Advent Conspiracy. It's an opportunity for us as a family to spend less on ourselves at Christmas and give back or give more and make that sacrifice so that people can have clean water or food or pretty much whatever they need. It's giving back. We spend less on ourselves so others can have more. So please join us in watching this video about Advent Conspiracy.
Good morning, North Point Church. My name is Steve Jolly, and I work with Give Clean Water. Give Clean Water has been working in Fiji since 2008, and we just got done celebrating our 12-year anniversary in August. Through partnerships like the one we have with North Point, we are able to provide clean water for families around the world. We give each family a filter like this one, which takes dirty water like this and turns it into clean water that families are able to drink without worry of waterborne illness. Oftentimes the villages where we serve only have access to rain catchment, a local stream or spring that they have to dam up and collect the water. And especially during the rainy season, which we're about to head into, the water becomes contaminated and the families end up having a lot of diarrhea from the waterborne bacteria or illness in bacteria. After receiving a filter, all of the diarrhea and waterborne illness is virtually wiped out from those communities. It's through partnerships like the one we had with North Point last year that we're able to provide clean water to families, villages, schools, and nursing clinics. The village that you all sponsored last year was Lumbao, and what a blessing that is to the families and to the children that received those filters. It's our hope that this coming year, you will, during your Advent Conspiracy, again be able to sponsor clean water work in Fiji. We have two villages set aside, Uto Village and Nawangandamu Village. Both of these villages are in the rural parts of Fiji, about an hour from Nandi. Nandi's the international airport on the island of Viti Levu. That's the largest island in Fiji. So thank you for last year's partnership, and we're praying for huge success for your Advent Conspiracy this year, so that not only with Give Clean Water, but other organizations that you sponsor will be blessed through your generosity. Thank you so much, North Point. Have a great morning.
As always, it is really good to be here again with you this morning. Hope everything is well in your houses, with your families, with your friends, and that you are all ready to hear the message this morning. Hope it will be good for your hearts. As I always do each week, I want to remind you to go get your bread and your juice of some kind. Have it ready for communion, and we'll be doing that at the end of the message today. We really hope that that's something that you continue to do. Seems foreign, I think, to maybe to do it at home by yourself, but I got to remind you, following the example of Jesus is simply what we need to do. Following his words and obeying them is what we need to do. And so I hope you do that. I hope you're ready to go here in just a moment with the Lord's Supper when we get to it. So we have been looking for the past couple of weeks at least, this idea of freedom and law and bondage, and it's pretty heady stuff, no doubt. Some of it's not really easy to wade into, but we got to do that sometimes. And I hope today will be good for you, because I want to do it just a little bit more. Hopefully today will make a lot of sense. In his letter to the Galatians, the Apostle Paul, he asks this really, really blunt question. And I want to read it here. It says, "Tell me this one thing. Did you receive God's Spirit by doing what the law requires, or by hearing the gospel and believing it, or hearing the story of Jesus and believing it?" And I got to tell you, this question is just as fresh and just as relevant for us today as it was for his first century hearers. The faith in Jesus that we hold today is intimately tied to the Jewish life and faith we read about in the Old Testament of our Bible. And I want to remind you of this, and this is super important these days as we try to interpret the times, try to be faithful followers of Jesus in this culture. This faith that we hold on to, it is not an American faith. The story of Jesus is set in Jewish history. Jesus was himself a Jew. God gave the Jews, or the Israelites, sometimes as we call them, 613 different laws or rules to live by. They're included in the Bible. You can read every one of them there. And he gave them these laws and these rules because they were his chosen or his special people group. Among all of the people that lived and walked on the earth at that time, they were his chosen, and he gave them these rules to live by. The most famous of these laws are the 10 Commandments that Moses came down out of the mountains with on the stone tablets. For the Jews, the law was central. The law defined their lives. The law set boundaries. The law defined culture. The law represented God to the Jews. It was the centerpiece of their life together. You see, the religion of the Jews during the first century focused on holding fast to these laws that God had given them, and then to the various traditions that rose up around those laws, and really that kind of evolved over time. And speaking of that evolution of laws, there was a particular group of Jews who were alive and well during the time of Jesus, even during the time that this letter to the Galatians was written. This group of Jews were called the Pharisees. And here at North Point, we've studied them many different times. I want to take a look at them again today because it comes to bear on our study of freedom and the law. The Pharisees of the first century, the Pharisees who were alive and present when Jesus himself was teaching, they knew the law. They studied the law. They observed the law. They were good at it. They were so good that they ended up redefining the laws. In other words, one of the things that they did in their looking so closely at the laws and following them so intimately, they ended up making the laws harder and more complicated for people to follow. It would be as if we said in our culture today, don't go outside and mow your grass on Thursdays. Don't go outside and mow your grass on Thursdays. Well, the Pharisee might add some complications to that law and say, well, don't go out and mow your lawn on Thursdays, and in particular, don't mow the lawn when it is less than 2 inches high and has less than 30% brown grass in it. And also don't mow the lawn if your lawnmower has not had the oil changed and a fresh tank of gas put in it on the second week of the month. Do you see how the law just got more complicated? The law is still don't mow your lawn on, or mow your lawn on Thursdays. Don't mow your lawn on Thursdays. But the Pharisee would throw all of these other little complications into it to make the law harder to live up to. The Pharisee would say that what they said was most important about the law. What they said, their interpretation, was the most important part about the law. They saw themselves as superior because of their superior law keeping. Nobody kept the law any better than the Pharisees. They thought, and this is super important for us to understand, especially as we apply this lesson to us today, is that they thought that they were made right with God by their law keeping. That's how important keeping the law was. And on top of that, they spent their time watching how others kept the law, especially Jesus. Some of them emphasized laws and behaviors even over other laws. In other words, they ranked them. For example, Jesus offended the Pharisees because he would heal or he would feed people on the Sabbath, where they said nothing could be done on the Sabbath. And maybe more than anything else is that the Pharisees made themselves the standard, not the law itself, but their keeping of the law. They made that the standard for others to live up to. Now here's the deal. We have modern day religious Pharisees with us all over. You may be one. I've got to tell you, I am a recovering Pharisee. I am not too proud to admit that. It is something that I struggle with, and something that I struggled with even more in my past. Modern day religious Pharisees, it's a different time, a different place, a different culture, but it's pretty much the same thing going on as what was going on in the first century. You see, to a modern day Pharisee, the personal interpretation of the laws or personal interpretation of the Bible is everything. In other words, when I pick up my Bible and I read it for myself, it's my interpretation that is most important. It's not what you think, it's not what the books think, it's what I think. Here's what God is saying to me. It's what I feel, it's how I see things. It's my interpretation. A modern day Pharisee acts like they know the law, but they often live off of opinion and tradition. We see that in our churches all the time, that those traditions that we hold to or ways that we do things sort of have a superior place in our relationships rather than the Bible itself. The modern day Pharisee, I think they still think they are made right with God because of their law keeping. Church involvement is what a modern day Pharisee says is what God is most pleased with. Or, God, look how much money I'm giving. Look at the serving that I'm doing. Look how I take care of these people. God, aren't you pleased with that? And though those things are fine, the idea that has seeped into the mind of a modern day Pharisee is that it's those activities, those actions that we do that somehow make us right with God. Maybe it's just being a good person. I can't tell you how many conversations I have had with people of some kind of faith, and we talk about how do you know that you're okay with God? And the first thing that comes out of their mouth is often something like, well, I'm doing my best to be a good person. Well, you might as well just say, I'm doing my best to keep the law. And as a matter of fact, I haven't broken any of the big laws. I haven't killed anybody. Surely God is okay with me. Modern day Pharisee still thinks they are superior to others because of their law keeping. They say it or they infer it by these words. Well, at least I'm not one of those people. At least I'm not like them. At least I didn't commit that sin. It's like the modern day Pharisee has this still, small, smug voice inside that says, I'm better than you are. Oh gosh, it just sounds ugly when I say it, but I know it is still there. A modern day Pharisee doesn't see much of a need to repent of sin because they are still confident the keeping of the big rules has somehow secured their place in heaven when it all comes down. And just like in Jesus' day, modern day Pharisees are hypocrites. That's the word that Jesus applied to the Pharisee. He called them hypocrites. You see, I think a modern day Pharisee is just as much of a hypocrite because the modern day Pharisee has no problem at all calling out sin, like the sin of others, while also having no problem watching it in their favorite movie or on their favorite TV show and enjoying it. Man, hypocrisy is so deadly. God originally gave the law as a means of fostering this relationship with Him. But for some in the first century and some now, the law or law keeping can become the end in itself. And it can be just as wrong and just as damaging to our spiritual lives. I want you to look at what Paul wrote a little later in the book of Galatians, in that letter that he wrote. He wrote these words, "So Christ has truly set us free. Now make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. What amazing words. What profound words for us today. Rather than getting their life from God who gave them the law, the first century Pharisees were attempting to get life from their commitment to the law. It is almost as if they got it completely backwards. Religion almost always does this. There are so many today who are committed to their beliefs, like so deeply committed to the intellectual beliefs that they hold to be true, instead of being committed to God Himself, instead of being committed to actually getting life from the God of those beliefs. It's like they've made a separation. And it's so easy to do when we are held slave to the law. Because they were placing their hope for life in the rules that were given in the past, they missed what God was doing in the present. And honestly, I don't think we are much different. The more we define the new life Jesus died to give us with a life of rule keeping, the more we confuse the law of sin and death with the law of the Spirit, which we talked about last week, the more tightly we cling to our religion instead of actually clinging to the one who came to make everything right. Actually, the one who came to turn everything upside down and show us what right was always supposed to be. The more we act like we are better, righter, superior, cleaner, more righteous, the more we act like that, all that and more, it's like the more blind we become to the King who is living and active and completely present with us in the moment. God's word says that we have been set free from the law. Maybe it's about time we started living it. I love being reminded during the Lord's Supper that Jesus is actually present with us. The bread and the juice are profound physical reminders of that which is true at all times for followers of Jesus, and that is that He is always with us. He is always present. He is always here. As we take communion today, let's remember that it is and always has been Jesus' presence that changes everything. It's not our effort. It's not our works. It's not our rule keeping that makes us right before God. It never was. It certainly isn't now that we know who Jesus is and what He's done. Because it is Jesus' righteousness that we are dressed in that makes everything all right. Today and every day. So as you take your bread and you take your juice, experience the presence of Jesus right now in this moment. Thank Him for giving you the new life that you have.
Come to the river where mercy flows. Come take your rest at the foot of His throne. Come as you are and be renewed. Come take the peace He offers you. Come as you are and trust in Him. Come find the joy that hides within. Come find peace, be free from sin. Come find new life, let hope begin. For He is the living water, and He is the breath of life, and He is the bread that was broken. He's the way, the truth, the light. He's the one I call Father. It's in Him whom I delight. He's the Alpha and Omega. He is Jesus Christ. He's the Alpha and Omega. He is Jesus Christ. Come lay your burdens at His feet. Come bring the secrets that you keep. Come like a child and be fulfilled. Come to the kingdom He has built. For He is the living water, and He is the breath of life, and He is the bread that was broken. He's the way, the truth, the light. He's the one I call Father. It's in Him whom I delight. He's the Alpha and Omega. He is Jesus Christ. He's the Alpha and Omega. He is Jesus Christ.
So I'm glad you joined us today. I hope you'll be here every time that you cannot be with us in person. Hope that you'll begin finding times and ways that you'll begin making your way back to joining us in person. But until that time comes, I am really glad that we can be here in this way. I want to remind you today, just kind of from my heart to yours, as we've thought about this concept today of law and law keeping and so forth, I really want you to know that today was not about minimizing the importance of obedience to Christ and just diligently following His words, following His example in how we treat people, how we interact with others, how we make decisions, how we prioritize things in our life to do each day. It was not about minimizing the need to follow in His footsteps. Nope, not at all. today was just making sure that we keep the right perspective and the right motivation as we go about obeying Him. We love, we trust, we obey, not to get Him to love us back. Rather, we love and we trust and we obey simply because He loved us first. Don't forget that as you go about your business this week. Take it with you everywhere you go, in every interaction you have. Until next time.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me in. Oh, His love for me. Oh, His love for me.
Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, He has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I